Tesla stock has taken a hit so far this year, down 27%. There's been a series of issues from stock analysts, stock downgrades, a dip of shipments in China, and the latest, an arson attack on Tesla's plant in Berlin. Joining us now is Tim Higgins, a Wall Street Journal reporter and a CNBC contributor. And Tim, it's good to see you. It's not like we hear great things about the entire EV market every day either, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough place to be playing, but for Tesla, it's all they're playing with, right? And the underlying story for Tesla has been about incredible rapid growth over the last few years. And now Elon and team are suggesting that's going to be much slower this year. And all of these signs in the last few weeks and months are really kind of making it even more worrisome just how slow that growth is going to be. One of the remarkable things about Tesla is if you look over the last 3 years, for example, the first quarter has shown growth that's been better than the fourth quarter, which is really rather remarkable if you think about it, because who wants to go buy a new car in winter and kick the tires, right? But that just kind of underscores how much growth there's been there. And now there's real concern that maybe this quarter won't be as good as last quarter. And that's worrisome to some people.
Do you think eventually that some of the mandates that we've had from the Biden administration, do they get pushed back? And does that matter to Tesla? Is Tesla dependent on I mean, I know that certainly subsidies help, but on the mandates to get to a certain place by 2030, if that gets pushed back, would that hurt Tesla?
Well, the tax breaks that have been passed certainly help make these cars more affordable for Tesla. Now we've seen them expanded, so Tesla has them again. Without a doubt, that helps as Elon fights to get every penny of cost as he can out of those vehicles. But he has argued in the past that he's not dependent upon these sorts of things, that his goal at Tesla is to make a vehicle that is cooler, is better than a gas car, and that will be what appeals to people and drives kind of that EV transition. And in a lot of ways, that has been true for Tesla. It's the other competitors who really seem to be struggling to make an offering that can compete with Tesla. People want a Tesla. Maybe they don't necessarily want an EV.
Does the general malaise in just, it's been pretty staggering to watch how quickly things can change with the whole perception of EVs. But the infrastructure build out, that's going to happen no matter what. I mean, if people sour a little bit, the demand is not there for EVs, they're still going to build the charging stations, right?
Right. We've seen kind of huge investments by the automakers other than Tesla, and they're kind of pulling back some of the speed of that. But we're also seeing the investment go into chargers. The charging network, it perhaps is one of the most important thing to kind of pushing forward that adoption. When you talk to consumers like I do, you hear that concern about, hey, where am I going to charge this thing on my road trip to see grandma? Even though for most people, charging at home is probably the best route. And not everybody, lives at a place where they can charge. So this is kind of one of the big kind of chicken or egg issues that we see out there.
You probably saw Andrew's DealBook interview where I don't think Elon really worries about about what people think of him. Certainly doesn't worry about what Bob Iger thinks of him. I remember you probably saw that. So what can you tell me? It was a New York Times report. What do you know about Elon Musk meeting at Mar-a-Lago with former President Trump?
So it would be a natural partnership. We've seen the evolution of Elon Musk since taking over Twitter, since kind of this idea that he's kind of against the idea of the woke mind virus, that idea of being over politically correct, over kind of liberal leaning. And you saw really last May or so, kind of moving more and more into politics, almost trying to be a ringmaster, if you will, in that kind of road to the White House, whether it was kind of welcoming the DeSantis campaign into the big fight or hosting other candidates on his platform. As we've seen the field narrow to Trump. If you're like Elon Musk, and clearly he's voiced opposition to Biden, Trump would be the pragmatic choice at this point. And the question would be, what can they both get out of it for each other, right? They're both very transactional Elon has a lot of business with the government, and Trump, could use probably some allies in that fight on the social media world, where Elon can kind of amplify with his echoverse all of these kind of thoughts and political messages.
And they both have been known to tweet first and ask questions later, too, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, here are two men who have really mastered the art of the tweet, right? I mean, embracing populism in a way that is remarkable.
Some wacky, both of them, it is weird. There may be more similarities than differences. And that union thing with, not inviting Elon to the idea that you don't invite the biggest EV maker, the transformative EV maker to an EV, that's ridiculous.